It has begun. It has begun, and there's no turning back once it's begun. All right. If it's your first time here, you might want to fast forward to the intro. I'll drop a timestamp in the description. I've been saying that for a while, but now I'm going to actually start doing it. This is my arm. And if it's not your first time here, you probably know the deal. I have to go get the link and post it on Twitter. I have to get my own link. It's just how it is, man. I've accepted it. Accepted the nature of the internet at this point. Nice. Tyler Prime jumped on it. The first person here. Okay, let's see. I took some writing out of the tweaks. I thought it was too long, but now it turns out it's actually not. So let's see. I'm going to grab the pick. All right. Let's do this. Boom. All right, I'm not gonna be tweeting live on there. I'm just gonna post that. Whatever it says is fine. Yo, what's up, everybody? Let's see. Anything else I have to do before I settle in with you guys? Yeah, I'm gonna post the show to Telegram also. I'm fancy. Operating on multiple platforms, but my phone only has 2%. Will I make it? Will I get it to the Telegram? Will I get it? Dun, 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 dun. The suspense. Oh my God, you can feel the suspense. I'm pasting it. It's on 1%. It's going. We did it. We did it. All right. Let me just configure the windows. And then we're good to go, man. We're good to go. It feels good to be back in action. Back in action. All right, I got the windows. I feel very prepared this week. I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but I'm looking at my desk. I got everything set up. All right. I'm just looking around really quick so I can fully be in the mode. I think we're good. I think everything's here. Oh, I got to put on my other glove. What's up, everybody? So we'll wait a minute for people to get in. We'll wait like 3 minutes. Just 3 minutes, and then we're going to pull the trigger. H asked, Owen, you're Catholic, right? Actually, I don't officially belong to any organization at this moment right now. Ever. Nor have I ever. I wasn't born Christian, so I never officially joined any group, but I want to. It's basically the whole story there. People that watch the show know. They've heard about it like a million times, but if you want to ask me about it, you can. On that note, if anyone wants to ask me anything, just make sure you put @OwenCyclops so I actually see it. Otherwise, I'm definitely not going to see it. Tyler Prime, Owen, how was your day, man? Isidore's here. What's up? My day was good, man. My day was good. I guess the pre-show, we talk about me for a second. Don't want to make it all about me, but talk about me for a second. It's going well, man. I'm one step closer to getting the studio going. I'm downstairs. I got the studio upstairs. People heard about my whole electrical problem last week, but I got this electrician to come. I'm going to get him to fix it, and then I think once I get up there, we're going to start season 4, and I'm going to get a little bit of maybe a fancier situation with the camera going on. I want to do some like still life stuff and things like that. Maybe get like the forward-facing camera with an easel or something. So that's really cool. The guy called me back. It's funny, I'm out here in like rural world, and I guess people, it's kind of nice because it imparts this more casual feeling to life, but sometimes people just don't answer their phones. So like, you know, you can call like 10 different, you know, plumbers or electricians or whoever you need, and they just don't answer their phones. It's kind of cool in a way. It takes the edge off. You know, I feel like it kind of makes me feel like I'm not obligated to answer my phone all the time. But I finally got one to come. It's not very interesting though. That's the whole story there. Otherwise, just been reading a bunch, prepping art for the Patreon posts and stuff tomorrow, trying to move along some big projects. I got this calendar I'm working on, so I dug back into that. It's all been pretty cool, man. Honestly, the most interesting thing going on with me right now is that I am just getting so many like pregnancy red pills. It's totally insane. I haven't posted that much on Twitter about it, but like, dude, I don't know if I've mentioned it at all really. I mean, I know I've mentioned like that my wife is pregnant, but just, you know, you think you've surveyed the whole field. Not that you know everything. You know, we never feel like we know everything, but you know, I feel like at a certain point in terms of like crazy ideas completely overturning your perspective on life and society, you feel like at least you've seen the whole cast of characters. You know, you maybe know about all the animals in the forest. Maybe you haven't seen them all, but you know about them. You're like, all right, I'm not going to get any, you know, totally out of left field surprises at least. I know the cast of characters, let's say. But dude, going into the pregnancy stuff has been insane. Like, I'll be sitting there watching some normal, not normal really, because I don't watch normal stuff, but like, you know, my wife's got all this like birthing from a Christian perspective and kind of like, not hippie, they use the word like crunchy, kind of like spiritual. They're Christian, but you know, they're very like spiritual, touchy-feely. Women talking about pregnancy and stuff. And I'll just be watching the videos with her, and honestly, they'll drop something, and I'll be sitting there, and I'll be like, this is a whole new red pill. This is a whole new dimension of red pills. New red pill just dropped. I literally take out my phone, I take out the Notepad app, and I'm like, and I think I'm gonna do like a mega post about it or something. I gotta like compile like the sources and stuff, but man, it's insane. We'll probably talk about it. I mean, since I'm bringing it up right now, I'm not gonna like hype it up so much and then not talk about it, but it's pretty crazy. That's like the most interesting thing going on with me. Otherwise, I'm hitting the books really hard when I have time. I've been falling asleep reading every night in my bed, and that's basically it, man. I'm just going hard. I feel like I accidentally took the last like 3 or 4 weeks off, moving and wife and everything, so I'm really trying to hit the ground like super hard. I wake up at like 6:30, and then there's like 3 or 4 minutes, and then boom, I'm off, and I just go until I fall asleep reading in my bed at night. It's a pretty good time, honestly. I can't really complain. I guess I'll talk about one. We'll talk about one thing. See, did anyone else ask me anything else? Thoughts on bhakti? Can you be more specific? You mean like bhakti yoga? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by that. What would make you skeptical or convinced of different sections of Christianity? We'll talk about that a little bit later. We've talked about that a bunch here. Not that I begrudge you asking me. Obviously, that's cool. I basically just have to figure out what the move is in terms of like churches near me, and then like kind of gets more complicated when you have like a kid in the mix. Not that I have one yet, but like, you know, let's say I hypothetically was like, oh, you know, this is the right way to go. Then it gets kind of complicated because I want the church to be like sort of a social environment for the kids. So if the kid, you know, if the church is like 90 minutes away, then what am I doing? Like driving there all the time to meet up with those people. But then am I making a theological decision for my family based on something like that? You know, it's kind of a whole big mess of stuff, basically. I'm going to close this window really quick. So I forgot the AC was out there. I'll tell you guys one crazy pregnancy thing, and then I'll pull the trigger on the intro. But here's a crazy one. So I found out about this thing. I couldn't believe I'd never seen this online. Don't like jump the gun. I mean, if you want to post it, you can, but like I'm kind of saving it up to post. But there's this thing called twilight sleep. You guys ever heard of this? There's this thing called twilight sleep. This is unresearched, just totally off the cuff, so don't like quote me on this. But it was something like, I think it was like in the 20s. It was way earlier in the 1900s. But they developed this thing where they would literally like drug women hardcore. I mean, I don't remember what they were drugging them with, but I think it was a deliriant. I think it was something like deliriant-esque. You know, I have like categories of drugs in my mind, but I forget. It didn't really fit anywhere neatly, but it was a deliriant of some kind, or like a sedative that had like a deliriant component. But they would be able to drug women and put them in this kind of like twilight sleep, so they wouldn't even remember giving birth. And what happens when you get in that kind of state, I guess, you know, it's one of those weird, sketchy drugs where your mind is still active, but you just don't have any control and you don't remember it. So they would literally wrap the women up in these like wool bandages, in these big wool. It almost looked like a straitjacket, but it's also around your head and it's made of wool. And they would use the wool ones because the women would thrash so much that they didn't want to leave like marks on them and have other people be like, what's going on? This looks crazy. So they did this, and they would drug the women, and they'd give birth, and then they'd be out for like a day or two just in this like mummy wool wrap bandages. And you look at the photos, it literally looks like out of a horror movie. It's completely insane. So you hear that and you're like, who would want that? Why would you want to do that? And the crazy part is that apparently, again, I haven't like officially looked into this yet. Someone just told me about it. But the people that were pushing the most for it were these female rights activists who were saying that if this medical intervention can make birth not painful for women, then they have a right to do it. So it was this really strange, paradoxical sync-up of looking at these photos, and it's literally like out of a horror movie. These women like wrapped up like wool mummies in these corners, you know, with curtains and everything. And then they would cut to, oh, who's pushing for this? And there's women in the street, like, you know, with little bullhorns and their little signs, campaigning for the right to go through this process. It's completely insane. A lot of the other stuff is more interesting because it relates to modern society, but that was a really weird one I never heard about online ever. It's called Twilight Sleep. Anyway, it's not what we're here to talk about, but it is interesting and relevant to our analysis of society. But it's time. It's time to wind back a little bit to 300 AD. It is time. It's time for the show.
Time we should start the service, and we want everybody that's here that's got the Holy Ghost to get in the service, put something in the service, and if you haven't got the Holy Ghost, come and seek the Lord and get it, because you need it. Amen. And I like to say this too, just be yourself. If you obey the Lord when we don't have photographers around, well, obey him when we do, and just be yourself. Now,
all right, it is time. How's it going, guys? So I got some stuff I want to jump into. Let's just jump right into it and get it going. I don't think I bit off more than I could chew here, but two things that I want to hit before we start painting really quick. Got some info, and then we got the tools, and then we're going to make it happen. So let's just hit the ground running right now. It's been a minute since we had a topic for the show. We've just been winging it, setting out on the sea of strange ideas, seeing what comes up from the cauldron. But I did mark a point on the map this week. As you may know, if you watch the show, maybe you don't, that's cool too. But I've been going over, atypical Christian groups, non-mainstream Christian groups, 1800 stuff. We hit a few, maybe we talked about it a lot. We didn't really hit it officially. Different weird, unmainstream Christian groups, let's put it that way, talking about 1800 stuff in America. And that naturally led me to early Christianity, and specifically, I really wanted to zoom in on the scenes and places and times and people involved with cementing Christian doctrine, because I was getting all this information. A lot of Americans in the 1800s kind of had this vibe of, well, those guys, those are just traditions, those are just men, we don't have to listen to them, we have the Bible, so we're just going to read the Bible and figure it out. Maybe that's valid, maybe it's not. And I thought, I'm going to look at myself and see what the deal is. So I've been looking into these different, controversies over, who Christ is and the Trinity, mostly like 3 to 500s AD. And it's been pretty cool. It's been pretty cool, actually, really stretching my brain out a little bit. And I remembered an interesting character I knew about, but I forgot. And he's a pretty cool guy. I'm going to pull up a picture of him right now. Boom. I got the hotkeys going. This is the fanciest tech the show has ever been. So I really, really, really like this picture. You can see we got these pagan guys. They're just really straight up pagan dudes sitting around. And I'm going to see if I can enlarge it just a tiny bit. Perfect. And over here on the right, we have this bishop dressed in white. He's got the sash. He's got all the, not really any gear, really, just the white robe and the sash. That's this guy named Ufilas. He basically has like 100 different names. Sometimes he's called Ufilas, Ufila, Ufilas with an O, with a U. There's like a million different names for this guy. I'm going to call him Ufila. It means little wolf. And he's a pretty cool guy because he is the apostle to the Goths. So we know Goths like from the mall, so that sounds really cool. I'm going to assume most people here have some idea who the Goths are. They're like a Germanic-y tribe up on the northern and eastern and northeastern parts of the Roman Empire, let's say around 300s AD or so, probably actually before that and after that, but it's not a history show. And he was the one who converted them. So it's a really interesting time, actually. It really reminded me of studying Buddhism, because it's sort of the same deal where you have this explosion of a new religious consciousness, and as it spreads out, you can zoom in and see the particular people bringing the new religious worldview to each individual group of people. And it's actually pretty kind of a deep parallel I'm going to make right now, because the type of Buddhism I'm the most familiar with back when I used to be in that scene is Tibetan Buddhism. And Tibet was actually the last Asian country to receive Buddhism. And there's a particular guy, his name is Padmasambhava, who brought Buddhism to Tibet. And he's kind of this warrior, not really a warrior, but he's more like a really aggressive, wizardy scholar kind of figure. And he's the one who brought Buddhism into Tibet. He actually didn't develop, but the king that he worked with developed a Tibetan writing system to translate these Buddhist texts. There's a little bit of a parallel here, because this guy, his name's Ufila, brought Christianity to the Goths. His deal is basically that he actually wasn't ethnically Goth. I'm not going to lie, I didn't know that being ethnically Goth was an option, but that sounds, it's just a really awesome phrase to imagine like your ethnicity is Goth. It's really solid. But he was Cappadocian, he was Greek. His parents were enslaved by the Goths, and they brought him into Goth land, and he grew up there. He probably grew up Christian, that's like the main guess. He went back to Greece. He was like a super educated guy. He spoke Greek and read Greek and probably Latin also. And then eventually he went back to the Goths, and he wrote the first translation of the Bible into Goth. He converted them, and he developed the Gothic writing system to translate the Bible into their language. So it's kind of a cool parallel. You know, as you go around, there's really not that many explosions of new consciousness forms that happen around the world, and as they go to these like non-literate cultures, they really transform them. I would imagine, I haven't gone too far into it, but I bet that's the case in a lot of places. I bet a lot of places develop their writing system in order to deal with new religious texts. I can say that's the case in like Central Asia, Tibet. Mongolia has a writing system they got from missionaries and stuff like that. So I think it's pretty universal. I got this other picture of him here too. A little bit of a different vibe, but here he is translating the Bible. A really cool note here is that, so he went back to the Goths, right? And just like you would imagine, they're barbarians, so they're pretty warlike. You know, do we need to go back to the last picture? These guys are all surrounded with their shields and their helmets and things like that. So when he was translating the Bible, he translated all of it except the Book of Kings. And he said that the Book of Kings, this is just his view, I'm not saying I think this, but he said the Book of Kings is basically just military stuff and people killing each other. And he was like, that's the last thing the Goths need. So he just didn't even translate the book. And I thought that was funny when I read that. I thought it was a myth. You know, you get a lot of these like kind of cute historical myths. But I looked into it and it's actually true. He like left that book out because he thought it would make them, he thought they would see it as like, what's the word I'm looking for? Sanctioning their warlike nature. So he just totally omitted it. And the aesthetic of the book that we have, that is the Gothic Bible in Gothic, redundancy, is pretty awesome. It's called the Silver Codex. Oh wait, I gotta like shrink this up again really quick. One sec. I got hotkeys for everything, but not the shrinking of images. So it's pretty awesome. It's called the Silver Codex, and it's called that because it's silver writing on this like purple parchment. I actually looked into it, and the parchment itself is this wine color. It's pretty awesome. Some of the pictures is more red, but it's pretty cool. And I'm fairly certain that like everything we know about Gothic writing, we know from this text that he translated. You can kind of see the letter quality here. I'm going to pull it up better in a second, but it's pretty cool. And in case that isn't really doing it for you, I actually have right here, boom, the hotkeys. We're next level right now. We're making it happen all over the place. So check this out. I was pretty excited about this. So someone, I guess I'll give him credit. It says his email address on here, but I mean, he put it on here, so I guess he wouldn't, I guess he wanted it to be on this document, so I'll just pull it up really quick. This is probably like 15 years old, so don't email this guy. A guy named Matthew Carver and Joseph Pashka translated the Ave Maria into Gothic. How cool is that? So we can actually see the writing style here. So I've worked with a few different like writing systems. I only speak English, but doing art, you know, you pick up different letter styles just for the pure aesthetic. So just real quick, before we read this, it's kind of cool to see the aesthetic of the letters, because if you've looked at Northern European writing systems, normally, the ones that are pre-Christian anyway, some after Christianity too, but just speaking generally, they're normally very runic. They're normally based in runes, if you've seen runes before. And it has this very particular, kind of angular, almost like electric flavor with the runes. It's very angly is really the only word to use. It's very right angles and 45-degree angles. Has a very particular flavor. It feels very Norse pagan, because it is. And when he developed this writing system, apparently he didn't want to use the runes because they had so much of an association with paganism. So he used the Greek and Latin alphabets and just brought in a few letters when he had to. But you can see before I read it, just the writing style. It's pretty cool. You know, it almost, if you saw this and you didn't know it was Gothic, I don't know what you would think it is, because it has a lot of, what I would see as English letters. Obviously they're Latin, but I'm an English-speaking person. So you see the N's, the G's. It almost feels like you can kind of read it. But then really these letters, I think these are called psi in Greek, where it's the U with the line through it, like PSI. Those really, really, really stand out. Also, you get a few of the downward reaching ones. The downward reaching ones kind of stand out. These loops really stand out. These almost look like a rune to me. I don't think this is a Greek letter. Maybe it is, but I know this is a rune. It's called Othala. So it brings in a few different flavors. I should have showed you guys and had you guys guess what it is, but whatever. And anyway, they translated the Ave Maria into Gothic, and it's pretty cool. I thought we would just go over it really quickly, because you can actually see some words that are reminiscent of English. Recently, someone bumped a post I made about this project called Anglish, which was a project to take all the non-Germanic influence out of English and just have this kind of very pure, European, uninfluenced version of English. And it's funny because, I was thinking of the Germanic influence, all that stuff. You can tell what some of the words are in here. So if you know the Hail Mary, in case you don't, you're about to hear it, I guess. So the first line is Hail Mary, Marja, I guess, is the closest one there. Full of grace, it says Anstai, Sudahafta, no really cognates there. Hail Mary, full of grace. Blessed are you among women. I guess Kinon is women. But yeah, wait, Hail Mary, full of grace. Blessed art thou among women. So Fraja here, Fraja must be father or something. That's the real one I always wanted to point out, because all the Germanic languages that I've found, their word for God is kind of like father, like Fraja. I know World Father is another one that comes through in Middle English, so I thought that was interesting. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus, says Jesus. Holy Mary, Marja, Mother of God, Gudis, I guess is God here. Pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. There's not really any other cognates, except Amen, which I guess is the same in Gothic. Anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. And I even printed out this creed. We're not going to read this right now. I always print out stuff to read on the show, and then I'm like, dude, I feel like it's going to take a half an hour to read this. But it even has this creed. I printed this in the font that I write my comics in. Actually just looks like you're reading one of my comics. So maybe we'll talk about this later. But the other interesting thing is that he was Arian, which means that he had this slightly different view of who Jesus is and who God is and stuff. And it's kind of funny because he converted the Goths, right? He made them Christian, but it's kind of like he made them the wrong version of Christian. He made them the version that became the wrong version of Christianity. So it's funny because they converted probably in part to have better relationships with the Roman Empire and all that stuff, only for these different Christian councils to come around and then be like, whoa, you guys are really, really the wrong version of Christian. And it caused some problems for them. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. So I thought that was a pretty good jumping off point for a picture. That whole idea of this guy going to this, pagan ethnic group of people over by the Black Sea and the Danube and all around there, and converting them and making a writing system base for them. And actually the real jumping off point for this picture we're going to do right now. Oh, I bumped my hand, but it's okay. The real jumping off point for this picture we're going to do right now, I'm actually going to pull it back up really quick. Man, the hotkeys are fancy. So I was looking at this picture and I thought, wow, this is a really awesome vibe. It's such a good vibe right here. But the real thing that I was drawn to was this guy's helmet. Look at this guy with the winged helmet. something about this is just so awesome because it screams pagan, doesn't it? It just, you could look at this picture and not know anything about it, and seeing the guy with the winged helmet, it just screams Germanic, Central European, pagan. It's such an interesting symbol that I guess I never really thought about. It's interesting because I thought about it more, and I thought, you know, wings on the helmet, that's really, makes me think of Mercury. That's really like Greek paganism. But something about the wings on the helmet with this big bearded dude just screams Germanic paganism. And then he's talking to this guy over here, who obviously is of like a different culture. He's even colored differently. He's in white, obviously. So I thought the jumping off point we could use for this picture was that winged helmet. And that's how we're going to get it started. And I guess I'll reveal the plan a little bit here. So what I'm thinking is, just so you know where we're going, we'll get the helmet on the bottom. I want to get the helmet on the bottom like this. And then we'll get these wings coming up like off the helmet. And then we'll get some stuff going on up here. I mean, his name's Little Wolf, so we can get a wolf in here or something. That would be kind of cool. I was thinking maybe like a scroll. We could even get some of the writing in. That's why I printed out the writing, actually. Get some writing in there. Some down here. Maybe like a sunrise. You know, that's very fitting for converting some people. So we'll kind of just jump off from that. The other variable here is that I have different paints out. And I thought we would start with a totally different painting setup. So I brought out these acrylic paints. So we've been using, I don't want to go in like a whole hardcore explanation. I kind of want to get painting right now, honestly. But we've been using the gouache paints, and the difference there is that the glue in there is water soluble. So I guess we will take just like 2 seconds to explain. Some people haven't been watching for the last like year, so we did a hardcore like materials thing when we first started. But the 90-second rundown of any painting material is all the paints that you're ever going to see and use for your whole life are two things: the pigment, what gives it the color, and the binder, what makes it stick to stuff. Basically all paint is colored stuff and glue together. And what the glues are is really what makes the different paints. So oil paint has a kind of binder that's like oily, to put it simply. Acrylic paint has a binder in here that's basically plastic. Like you can get an acrylic chair at Home Depot. So these are plastic, essentially. It's not very Lindy in case you're keeping score. The gouache paints, the binder in there is water soluble. So if you hit it with water, it'll let go of itself and re-wet itself. Watercolors, the binder in there is totally water soluble. So that's what makes different paints different. And we've never used acrylic paints on the show before, mostly because they dry really, really, really fast. That's the big variable with acrylic paints. I read in this book one time, it's a really funny thing this artist said. He said the great thing about acrylic paints is they dry really fast. And the really bad thing about them is that they dry really fast. I think that really sums it up very well. It'll dry super quickly. So even the gouache we use, you know, if you watch the show, it's usually very wet. And you know, if I try and go back into a place where there's paint, sometimes that paint will kick back up. It stays wet for a little while. Oil paint will stay wet for weeks and weeks and weeks. If we did an oil painting right now, I could just turn the stream off and we can come back next week and it would actually still be wet if I made it thick enough. But these will dry really, really quickly. We could put a stroke down and just watch it dry on the show. So that matters for a few reasons, but the biggest reason is that I have to be really careful with the brushes because this is plastic, essentially. And you can imagine if you had your hair, brushes are made of hair, right? If you got liquid plastic in it and the plastic dried, you're not going to get it out. You're going to have to cut your hair off. That's basically what we don't want to happen with the brushes. So it's a little bit of a dangerous game. That means that if we're painting and I put the brush down, and the paint dries on it, that's it. The brush is going in the trash. So I got to keep track of what I'm doing. So I only have a few brushes out here. We're also working on a lot smaller surface. You can probably notice my hands are taking up way more of the screen. Thought we could do a little bit more controlled. We've sort of gravitated because of the gouache over to a very loose and like very loose painting style. I thought we could change that up a little bit. And also because I wanted to just keep track of all the materials that we have going on here. I only brought out a few colors. I mean, this is relatively not that many colors compared to what we're normally using. We got white, we got two reds. We really could get by with just the one red if we wanted to. A yellow, only a warm yellow. These two greens, they're kind of weird greens, but I thought it would be cool. A warm light blue, a darker blue, ultramarine. Then I got these weird browns, but that's basically it. So this is also going to be kind of interesting because normally, honestly, I really only paint when I have the full color spectrum, because if I'm doing like an official real painting, it's really frustrating to go to grab a color and it's not there, and to realize that you're sort of closed out of one part of the color wheel. For example, this is a warm yellow, so if I was trying to mix certain greens, I wouldn't have that cool lemony yellow. We only have the school bus yellow, so you can't mix certain colors. But I thought for the show, it would be cool right now to kind of try something a little bit different. And also, the pigments, they have a little bit of like a weird kind of primitive flavor, the colors that I happen to pick out. You can kind of imagine maybe, 600-700 AD. The colors that I brought out here they're not too wild. I didn't get like electric pink or anything like that. So we'll see how it goes. Oops, I hit the camera. So we'll see how it goes right now. I actually don't know how it's going to turn out, but that's part of the fun. I feel like the more fun episodes have been when I personally don't know how it's going to turn out. The other variable is, since it's so small right here, we can be a little bit more controlled. I don't know how that's going to manifest exactly, but let's just go for it and see what happens. If you send me a message or anything while I was talking that whole time, obviously I didn't see it. You can send it again, or I'll scroll back up in a second. But let's get going here, and I want to get started with that guy's helmet on the bottom. I could tone the whole background, but I don't think I'm going to. That probably would be smart. Later on in the show, I'm probably going to regret having not done that, but it's just how it's going to go right now. So I'm going to throw down some white. I don't think I'm going to use this palette knife. This is how you really mix colors. You like scoop up the colors and make it happen, but I don't think I'm going to do that. And already I'm feeling the limitations of my palette, because I feel like that guy's helmet should be gray. I don't have black. So I could mix a black right now. Let's do it actually. I'm going to grab this ultramarine right here. So in a classical painting palette, the reason I don't have black is because, maybe we'll just use the cobalt blue, is because I used to do really classical oil painting, and if you're really doing it super old school style, sometimes some teachers will have you not use black, because it's a little bit of a crutch for people that are just starting out to paint sometimes. You can always grab the black and darken every color, but as you can imagine, it's usually better to actually use colors to darken the other color. It's a little bit more of like a sophisticated thing. Okay, perfect. So we'll use this red oxide. Maybe we can try and use as few colors as possible. That would be cool. So I'm going to squeeze this out. Let's go. Perfect. Nice. Let's see if I can get a nice like gray going. It's going to be interesting too, because I don't know how quickly I'm going to go. Obviously we're not going to be here for like hours, but with the acrylic paint, I can't tell exactly what my MO is here. Am I going like super sniper scope? I don't want to say delicate style, but am I really painstakingly going over each inch of the canvas? Am I going to go like fat undercolors? That's one other option we could do. We could kind of just put in fast areas of color underneath and then come over it with lines. I don't know what we're going to do exactly. It's a pretty good gray. I almost want to add some yellow to maybe lighten it up a little bit. Let's see. Perfect. Because with the acrylic paint, what we have the advantage of, you can imagine, I could take this color and just throw it down, right? And then in a minute it'll be dry and I can build up over it. I was thinking last week we were talking about building up the colors and being a little bit more painterly. That's part of why I thought we'd change it up. I can't tell. I can't tell which brush I should really go with right now. Normally I'm so confident. Let's see what it's like with the small brush really quick. Okay. And let's see. I think we're just going to come in. So normally, not when I first started, but the style of painting that I settled on for a really long time was kind of like this size, and I would painstakingly go over every inch of the board. This is a board, by the way, not a canvas, obviously. And I would literally just spend days and days going over with a brush smaller than this, just going over every little inch of the painting. And I did some pretty cool stuff that way. It took forever. So already what I'm noticing right now, you know, part of the function of the show is the sort of meta-creative, engaging with the tools aspect. I want to encourage other people to grab some paints, do their thing. So here's what's happening right now. You can see that the look that I'm getting, it's not really ideal. So you can see down here, you can see right through the paint, right? Obviously. There's a few reasons for that. Maybe because I'm going really quickly, maybe because I'm actually mixing on this paper instead of like a real palette, because I think it looks more aesthetic than the shiny, sort of like wax papery feel below. But for whatever reason, we're getting this kind of like washy look anyway. And I have two options, really. I could lean into it. I could say, all right, well, let's do it. Let's just roll with the washy look. Or I could change it up and maybe just accept that we're going to get these kind of washing large areas of color. It's making me want to grab a bigger brush, because you can make this look nice and this is a perfect example, actually, what we're looking at right now. You can make it look nice and sophisticated if you get these nice areas right here. But once you get in and you can see every little stroke, I mean, no one likes that. That's not really good. So I'm going to change it up. We're going to grab the bigger brush right now. And I think we're going to change the mission objective here. And we'll lay down some larger areas, some large fat areas of color, which, lucky for you, will be more interesting to watch. And then we'll build up on top of it. So I'm just going to go for it here. And it's a little bit liberating, because now I know that these forms and shapes that I'm painting in, this is not going to be what's sort of left standing at the end. It's almost like I'm throwing in the blurriest sections of the Polaroid right now. And when the picture finally develops at the end, you're not even really going to see all this stuff. So I'm not too worried about the shapes or anything. A blurry Polaroid is the perfect way to describe what we're going for right now. And that means I can also throw in the background. So I'm going to start building up this color too. Something about this color feels very appropriate for the theme, doesn't it? It's kind of transparent, like yellow iron oxide. It's just a good time. So let's see. I got some other stuff I want to talk about once we get the material balls rolling here. And this is a very transparent color also. It's kind of a nice color, actually. You can really feel that like warm energy coming off of it. So I'm just going to come in and paint this in here. Cool. And it's interesting because pretty much the whole show, I don't think we've ever worked on a board before. We've always done watercolor. So that means that I can wet the paper, and when I do the strokes, it'll kind of bleed into it. But here you can see the paint is really just sitting on top of the surface. This is a board. I don't know if I made that clear. This is literally like a piece of wood that's coated with a material called gesso. It's like a calcium carbonate mixture that accepts paint. So it's a little bit different too. These strokes are just going to stay here. If you've been watching the show, if I've done strokes like this before, it soaks into the paper, and I get that softness inherently. That could be a good or a bad thing. But here, we're not going to have that, baby. So we're going to set out into some uncharted waters. I think I'm going to have it fade from the iron oxide into this green gold color. This also somehow feels like a very appropriate color. It's obviously more interesting when no one, not even me, knows what's going to happen. Oh, such a good color. I love I don't even know what to call it. It's almost like a venomy green. It makes me think of like snake venom almost. Or it makes me think of those baby leaves on a tree. You know, like when the light is like piercing some plant or something, and it really does have this almost like luminous color like that. I love this color. As a painter, it's almost too powerful. And then, why not just commit? Let's just have it fade up into the green. That'll kind of give us a good little color situation to work with too, because then we can go from the blues down into the yellows, and that can be like the gradient for the whole picture. Perfect. foam. This might change up the palette a little bit, but I think it's good. Yeah. We could commit and go fully with just like the parchment-y, old-looking colors, but I don't know. I think it's more interesting to change it up a little bit. I like having an outlier in the color scheme that I create. So if I'm going with like all medieval colors, it's cool to throw in like a pink or a magenta or something. At the end, by the way, with the border, I'm going to come through and paint over that. So I'm not really worried about the border at all. And also what this will do is by laying down this layer of pigment, it'll give the paint above it something to really grab onto. Okay, I'm going to grab this cadmium yellow. I'm hoping this is more opaque. You can see when you buy these paints, they put this stripe over it so you can see how opaque it is. So I'm hoping I can come up from the bottom with this yellow glow. That's really what I want right now. Perfect. Perfect. Great. Yeah, there we go. Nice. You can see once we get rid of that kind of like nasty, like transparent texture, we'll be working a little bit more seriously. And then I'm going to come in and just use that yellow with the browns. Perfect. And just start building up. Maybe I should wait a second, but I'm not going to. Cool. What else is the board? Oh, what size is the board? It's pretty small, man. I don't know. These are my hands. It's pretty tiny. I'll measure it in a second. Oh, I have a ruler right here. It's probably 7 by 5, probably 5 by 7. Cool. Perfect. Come down here a little bit. Great. Let's just wait for a second for it to dry, and you can see, perfect. Look, so this bottom part is already basically dry. Great. And I guess I'll come back over the helmet right now. Let's see. I'm just going to use the gray that I mixed up before. So yeah, so the other interesting thing about this guy and him converting the Aryans and all that stuff, converting the Goths, that they were Aryan. So I've been going over the, like I said, what we call like the Christological and Trinitarian controversies in the 300s, 400s, 500s. And it's been pretty interesting, man, because I think I mentioned it a tiny bit last week, but I've gone more into it this week. And seeing how fine of a line you end up cutting it with like what becomes proper doctrine and what becomes a heresy and all that stuff has been super interesting. I actually, upstairs on this desk, I have these charts laid out. I actually was drawing out these charts where it's like, okay, well, this group of people said that Christ has 100% of divine nature and it's in a human body, but he didn't retain any of the human nature. Like, I'm drawing it out. I have like, okay, here's these arrows and these circles and everything. And then these people over here said that, it's this way. It's totally different. And it was just interesting because I was sitting there looking at it, and I was like, even me sitting here with the benefit of, modern scholarship, I can consult any work I want, I have all this stuff, and I'm laying it out. I was like, even for me, this is pretty difficult to firmly get a grip on. It's almost like math formulas. So like a lot of the groups ended up laying out their doctrinal statements in the form of a formula. So it'd say, we believe that X is Y, not being Z, not being A, not being B, it's always Y. And I was comparing them, and it was pretty difficult to parse out some of the differences sometimes. And it was just interesting because I was thinking, dude, how many people that were on the ground that weren't bishops or higher up figures and things like that could even begin to parse out what this is about? And I don't know if people know, but like some of those schisms still retained, like way off in the east. So most people probably know there's like Oriental Orthodox, there's like the Eastern Orthodox Church, obviously. But they have their own, I don't want to say they have their own schism because it's technically a different group, but then there's a group called the Oriental Orthodox. and they are separate because they didn't subscribe to something called the Council of Chalcedon around like 400, 450 AD. I'm trying to decide how I want to do these wings. I might just come over it and put the lines in. Let's see, the background's dry enough. I'm going to keep throwing down colors in the background. So they ended up having their own break because they wouldn't subscribe to this thing called the Council of Chalcedon. And it's still like that. So that's why, if you think about it, like when you think of the Orthodox Church, you don't really think of, the Far Eastern groups. Like there's a church in India and things like that. It's because they're what's called Oriental Orthodox, and they reject some of the councils. So let's see. I'm kind of trying to see how this stuff handles. Am I really going to build up these really thin layers? There's a little bit of a fork in the road right here for us, because you can see, so now I'm laying down this other layer on top of it, and I really don't like this look where it's like thin layers on thin layers. What I could do is I could mix the white in. White, this color, titanium white, it's like the opaquinator. It makes colors opaque. So I could use this. It's going to chalk it up a little bit. It's going to make us lose a little bit of that like luminous, transparent paint quality. But I guess that's the binary that we're playing with right now. Let's see. I'm just going to mess around with these while we talk for a second. And yeah, the other thing I was thinking of is, I was wondering, I was laying in bed last night, and I was thinking about this. And I was wondering, it's interesting because when you look into all these creeds and like groups declared heretical, seeing what's incorrect is very easy. Okay, perfect. It's a little bit better. Seeing what's incorrect is very easy. Like it's very easy to find, a group of people like the Gnostics. There's this guy named Valentinius who say stuff like, oh, well, actually, Jesus is just God kind of wearing like a human suit, and it's 100% just God, and he's wearing like literally like a human suit. So when you look on the cross, that's actually just God the Father. It's just like an illusion kind of. And it's pretty easy to find cases like that and say, okay, well, that's like incorrect, right? But then parsing out what's correct is actually the much more difficult situation, and pinning it down and saying, yes, I understand this beyond someone just telling me. Like you can read the statement and it says, well, here's a good example. I was literally like laying awake in bed thinking about this last night, where it says, well, the natures aren't separate, nor are they, there are two natures, the divine and human nature, in one, but there's no separation or division, nor are they like mixed together, basically. And I was thinking about how I could draw that, and I thought, well, if I draw it as a checkerboard, they're separate. If you draw it as a checkerboard or as a split, like with a line down the middle, well, then there's a separation that doesn't fit the statement. But if you draw them as like red and blue and then it's purple, then that's mixed together. And I was lying there and I was trying to think of an example of like how it could be illustrated and how it could be. So understanding it beyond the level of someone just saying, yeah, that's how it is, and you saying like, well, yeah, okay, sure, I think is a little difficult. And it's just interesting because, at the start of the year, we went through the Clement of Alexandria stuff, and his whole thing was, Greek philosophy was like a preparation for the gospel, and you can dig into these like Greek philosophical ideas and see how they lead to Christianity. And if you were here for that, it was in like January, so it was a while ago, but he thought that so much that he actually thought that Plato read Moses and that Plato got his ideas from Moses. That's how much he felt like there was a connection. Turns out that's probably not the case. But yeah, and it just makes me wonder, because a lot of those groups that I mentioned, like the 1800s groups, and I know it's also a thing in other like legit theological stuff, like some Orthodox people I've seen talk about it. But I just wonder how much this urge to like philosophize what's ultimately something that comes from revelation, I wonder how much of that is like a positive or plausible thing. I feel like there's this part of my brain that is really resisting the possibility that maybe you can't fit it into like a philosophical framework. I remember once I was listening to Jay Dyer talk about something, and he kind of offhandedly mentioned, yeah, all these guys were trying to like fit Neoplatonism in with Christianity, and I think he made it sound like it wasn't really a great thing. I don't want to speak for him. And it really like rocked my perception at the time. It really rocked my little brain, because I was like, whoa, what? I was like, I feel like that's the only platform I'm standing on. I feel like the only platform I'm standing on, this was a really long time ago. I feel like the only platform I'm standing on here is making sense of theology by relating it to Platonism and Greek philosophy and stuff. I was like, don't take that away from me, because if you take that platform away, I have no idea what I'm even standing on now. So I kind of just ignored it, honestly. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to integrate that into my understanding of anything right now. But as I move further along, I'm wondering if that's like an obstacle that I have. I'm wondering if that's an obstacle that I picked up along the way, needing to see things through this, frankly, like Neoplatonist framework. In case people don't know about Neoplatonism, you know, there's a guy named Plotinus. And his whole thing was that God, I don't really even think he used the term God, but that the ultimate thing, you know, the top of the ladder, was called the One. And it was this like ultimate oneness. And if I remember correctly, don't, you know, quote me on this, but it was very apophatic, in case people don't know what apophatic means. Apophatic is like describing God through negatives. You know, so there's some branches of theology where they say, man, I hate this texture. We were doing so good, and then I got this little like wet in wet texture. We were doing so good though. I was even talking, we were trucking along perfectly. There's some you know, forms of theology where you can only describe God via negatives, where you say, well, God isn't this and isn't this and isn't this, and by building this bridge via negativa, via these negations, that's how you can gain like an understanding of God. I feel like I got an element of that from Plotinus, just imagining this, you know, what are you imagining then? This like ball of like light, this ball of oneness that has almost like every property and no property, and that's like the highest state of the universe, I guess. That's like the highest consciousness thing, I guess. Is this dry yet? No, it's not. It's not. And I feel like I'm going to talk for a second, and then we'll... So if I let this dry, then I can just build up on top of it. So it'll literally just take like 2 seconds. By the way, this looks really cool. I have this epic light coming in from the window behind me this way. So yeah, I feel like I picked that up from the Neoplatonist stuff, and I really worked with that model before I was Christian, even after I was Christian also. But I feel like now it's like an obstacle almost, because I was lying in bed thinking about this, and I thought, you know, I have this kind of conception, it's subtextual, it's like built into the back of my mind, that God is like this very philosophical, almost cloud of like certain properties, and you can't define certain aspects of it. It exists in like a philosophical context, I guess, in my mind. And I was, in a way, I mean, obviously I think God is real, you know what I'm saying? I think that's like buried though deep in there. And I was thinking, you know, if you just sat down and read the Bible, you would never come up with anything like that. If you just sat down and read the Bible, you would never come up with the conception of God as this like philosophical idea cloud. I'm not even saying anyone explicitly says that, but I think it's like in there, in my brain at least, somewhere, so maybe other people have this also. Well, I'm getting this really epic light from behind me right now. I'm getting like blown out with like sunset light behind me. And I was thinking, yeah, like you would never read scripture and come to a conclusion like that. You know, I'm reading Genesis, and it's like God is talking to people, and he has rules, and he wants stuff. This sounds very obvious, obviously. But it's just so interesting because, I don't know, I feel like somewhere in my mind is buried this conception that God has to be this like philosophical, nebulous cloud. And like, even if you have these ways of like knowing about it, at the end of the day, it's still this like cloud of like oneness properties. It's very Neoplatonic, actually. I guess I picked up the Neoplatonic conception of God somewhere along the way. And then, yeah, I guess I'm just unpacking that now. I don't really have like an ultimate like, whoa, there's the point. But I guess I really am unpacking that now. And like I said, it's been hitting me like a ton of bricks because, you know, all the 1800s Christian people, whether they're right or wrong about whatever, that's part of their whole thing is like, well, you know, if you just read the Bible, you're not going to come to some of these conclusions that other people came to. I'm not like 100% on that page necessarily, but it's just interesting, you know? I really think I have to go more into like the intersection of Neoplatonism and Christianity and stuff like that. I went a little bit into how Plotinus intersects with Augustine and Neoplatonism and Augustine. I guess they were kind of around the same time and vibe. I don't know if they actually lived concurrently, but I don't know. It just reminded me of, so I just dropped that illustration of scenes from Augustine's Confessions. Is this dry yet? Yes, it is, finally. From Augustine's Confessions, and there's a scene in Confessions, if you've read it. If you haven't read it, you definitely should check it out. Oh, perfect. So see, now we can lay down this green color right here. I'm tempted to go close this window behind me, but I also feel like the lighting is very epic. Do you see this light down here? Down at the bottom here? I guess I should go close it so we can actually see what we're doing, but I'll do it in 1 second. So yeah, anyway, there's a scene in Confessions where Augustine is, I think he's sitting at a desk or something, but he has this ultimate revelation where he realizes that God isn't a material thing, and that this whole time he's been trying to understand God from this, like, there's this guy named Manichaeus. I don't know what the teacher's name is, but the religion's called Manichaeanism. We're not going to go into it right now. But he's been trying to understand God from this perspective of imagining it as like a material thing. And he has this revelation where like, whoa, that's not actually 100% how it is. And it clears up his perspective enough that he eventually becomes Christian. And it's just so funny. I'm going to go close this window. You like literally can't even see anything, but it's pretty cool. I'm going to keep talking now. And it's so funny because I feel like I'm going the opposite route. I feel like I'm sitting there being like, well, I basically at the end of the day have to imagine that God is this philosophical, negational cloud of like amorphous properties, I guess. And then I'm like, but is that really how it is? Like I just said, if you read the Bible, God gets mad at people. He wants stuff. He's talking to Adam in the garden, whether that's, God the Father or whatever. But the point is that, I guess I'm just kind of really unpacking that from my mind, Anyway, that's the monologue. That's the monologue for tonight. We did it. But it's been super interesting, man. It reminds me, I think that's kind of like how my thought process is, that I kind of just go to the fringe perspectives and get people's viewpoints and take away what they're saying and then come back to my own perspective and see, what the story is. But some of those 1800s guys really flipped my view. I was like, wow, yeah, maybe I am kind of imagining too much of like a philosophical view here. I don't know. Anyway, I'd be very interested to know what people think about that. I totally missed any comments because I was just kind of on the going off train for a minute. That my bad. Normally I am reading the comments 100%, but if I missed anything you said, feel free to tell me. I was just thinking about that for a while and I just wanted to throw that out there. Okay, we need to start going hard with some fat colors here. So I was thinking that I'd be able to build up large areas of strong color, but it's not really going down like that. So I'm going to try and change my plan a little bit right now. And I'm just going to come in with some lines. Let's just come in with some lines. I'm going to grab the red oxide and let's just start getting some painting in. I mean, some like, not painting, but some line work in. Someone said, yeah, the guy in Augustine, his name's Faustus. Probably Faustus. But yeah, it is. It's a cool scene in Confessions also. He's really obsessed with his teacher named Faustus. I'm gonna say Faustus. Faustus? I'm gonna go with Faustus. Let's go with that. We're an uneducated gang here, so I'm not really worried about saying it wrong. But he's really obsessed with meeting this guy, and he's like, this is the guy that's gonna explain Manichaeanism to me. This is the guy that's gonna explain all these esoteric doctrines. And he finally meets him, and I forget exactly what he says, but basically what he says is, he's like, dude, I don't know. He's like, I've read the same books you have. He's like, I'm just a guy. And it kind of like disillusions him. I think we've all been there. So let's see. I'm going to see what happens if we just throw down some line work right now. I didn't really expect the paint to adhere to the board the way it did, but let's just see what we can do with it. It might be cool to get some dark lines and come back in with some darker colors. Let's just see how it goes. Okay. Let's start reading some comments. As someone going into Orthodoxy, this is definitely a difficult thing to grapple with. So I grew up Protestant and was ingrained with the scholastic thought from that and Bible college. Yeah, it's really interesting, man, because I almost feel like, again, I'm like a total outsider. Like if you went to Bible college, we probably had as different upbringing and growing up experiences as two people could possibly have. Probably trade with you, to be honest with you. But it almost feels like what I'm describing exists slightly independent of denomination even. You know what I mean? I can't really pin it down to one group, or it almost feels like it's the product of like certain thinkers over time and who people choose to emphasize. But I can't really say. It is interesting. What do you think about the historical critique of Yahwehism? Some of my former pagan mutuals who now have me blocked align with the academic orthodoxy. Yeah, I don't know, man. Isn't it kind of weird when people bring up like, I know it's like not a 100% totally negative thing. I feel like I get a weird vibe when people bring up like the term Yahwehism and stuff like that. Like it just reeks of like very academic-ness. I know it shouldn't, but to me it does personally. I don't know. What do you mean by that? Like the idea that like, you know, that all this being, I guess you could say, historical Judaism and then Christianity came from kind of like a cult around like Yahweh, and then there's this sort of academic view that what he was like a volcano god or like a storm god or something like that. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. I don't really subscribe to that. I haven't looked into it fully, perhaps obviously based on my answer, but whenever I've gone into it, I just feel like the academics that I look into with it have such a hardcore like beginning assumption that just reeks of such negativeness. And if you're familiar with scripture and stuff, I think normally you can say, well, that's not actually how it is though in the scriptures. So I've always kind of brushed it off. Maybe there is some legitimacy to it, but it's never really served like much purpose to me, I guess you could say. I really don't like how that line came out down here, and I want to make sure it's a strong line, so I'm going to fudge it a little bit and start bringing down, perfect, the color down here. Perfect, because I do want to keep a little bit of that loose feel. I'm going to come out with the border, so actually maybe we'll even make the border that color. But I want to make sure that even though we're coming in with these lines, we kind of still keep it loose. Let's just come around with a little bit of that. I'll pick that up with the color. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to paint in this wolf. I don't want it to be... This is a big dividing moment right now because it's going to set the rest of the color scheme. I'm going to paint it in red. I'm just going to paint them in red. I was going to put it in gray. Gray is kind of a boring color. I think I was subconsciously fighting it. Let's throw in this wolf. Cool. Sorry, maybe I was talking too much. Maybe I got a little off track. I didn't think it would take that long to throw the background down, but you know, I never know what's going to happen here. We'll have an exciting last section. Okay, so let's come in here. Perfect. Not opaque enough. We're going to grab some white. I need like the late night show hosts have. I need like a monologue section. I should just like kick off the show with like, here's what I'm thinking, and then we can dig into painting. All right, so I'm just going to throw in this kind of wolf-like creature. It's probably going to look just like a dog or something, but I'm cool with it. I want to move the painting along a little bit. And yeah, there we go. Perfect. Little Wolf is kind of a cool name. Perfect. And it's not as opaque as I wanted, but you know what? You can't have everything you want. Perfect. We'll give him like a big tail. I might even come over with the gray. Perfect. Perfect. Yeah, now we're talking. Now we're cooking. There we go. Perfect. So see, now you can kind of see the strength of the acrylics that I was mentioning beforehand. Laying down colors and then coming over it afterwards. And I think what we'll do is throw like a kind of light or glow around this wolf. You know, if he converted these pagan peoples, that's a pretty solid symbolism. You know, the light, bringing the light in a positive sense. Okay, let's come down here. Boom, boom, boom. Nice. probably put an eye on the wolf. Maybe not though. I don't want it to look too goofy. That's perfect. I'm gonna grab some of this yellow over here. And I want to differentiate enough so we can keep the building up. Am I quiet? Is it sounding quiet? Sorry, someone said it's quiet. I can turn the mic up if it's quiet. Okay, let's throw in the white. And I'm going to grab this over here. Let's see, people can ask me anything else. We can talk about anything else. But anything else we should talk about before we wrap up that topic I just unloaded on? Academic stuff, weird philosophy, theology mixtures. Not really, but I am curious what anyone else thinks, because, you know, I feel like I can really see it both ways, you know. I can really see it both ways. You know, it's important to like understand these things. I guess I'm just wondering how much it's possible to. I have this part of my brain that's really fighting the realization, maybe. Let's see. I'm gonna turn the gain up on the mic. I'm in a new room, so it could be less echoey or more echoey or something. All right, I turned it up. But let me know if I should turn it up more. Perfect. I can also talk a little bit louder. I moved the mic really far away from my computer, so you guys wouldn't hear the computer fan. Anyway, though, I guess I'm just really fighting like this possibility that, you know, what if it really is just like a mystery and you can't really explicate it or explicate parts of it? I have this like part of my brain really fighting that for some reason. Man, I thought we'd use the tiny brush, but it's really not the move. Perfect. I think like all things, maybe there's a middle ground. Maybe that's like really the answer, you know. It's not 100% a mystery, like just throw up your arms, you know, we can't understand it at all, but maybe thinking that like we can figure out every single little like tiny minutia. Maybe that's a little bit naive. I don't know, man. It's really been racking my brain. I know that I was reading a little bit. Most people here probably know, but like Constantine, when he first brought Christianity up and was amped to use it as the tool to, let's say, get the Roman Empire to the next level. Put it that way. I think that this one guy I was reading said that when he heard what these controversies were that were tearing the church apart, he was like, really? He was like, this is what we're going to get in a big fight about? He was like, this is the issue? Some people might not know. He's the one who called the first like ecumenical council. For that exact reason. You can kind of imagine him being like, guys, this is not going to be the thing that's going to be the issue. Like, get it together. Decide, you know, one nature, two natures, figure it out. There's some other interesting stuff, though. Like with the Arian stuff, we didn't really go into it because I'm not trying to, like, hardcore academic lecture. Yeah, I'll get this, like, yellow around. Kind of, like, feeling out these paints, like, live on the air, but cool. We are going to come in and throw some gray in the wolf, I think. This light up here, though, could be a little bit better. Let's see if we can get this going up here. With the Arian stuff, it's interesting because in case people don't know, the long story short is that in Arianism, Christ is like subordinate to God. Sometimes it's even called a form of what's called subordinationism. But basically you have, this is kind of cool. So you can see, we finally, I know it took a little while, my bad, but you can see the texture that I'm talking about. If we keep plugging away, maybe over the next like few episodes, we can really get like the real texture game going. I wish it dried almost faster now. I never thought I would wish that about the paints. What this one guy was saying was that Arianism is more like conducive to an emperor and a leader, because then you can say, you know, well, God's all the way out there and he has this, you know, representative basically who's Jesus, and I'm kind of like that. I'm the emperor and I have these representatives, and also it goes the other way. I'm like God's representative. So apparently some of like the warlords and kings and stuff were pushing for a more like Arian setup. Okay, that's enough academic lecture stuff. People can ask me stuff, and if not, maybe I'll just talk about some of the crazy pregnancy stuff, because that's pretty nuts. Otherwise, I want to keep this moving. What time is it? Oh, it's 8:06. Perfect. Maybe I need to like let it dry. You know, what I'm thinking is that if we keep going down the acrylic road, maybe I'll even do like 2 smaller paintings at once, and I can let one dry while the other one is getting worked on. Because even right now, I want to come in with this gray, but it's going to pick up the red. But whatever, let's just go for it. Perfect. Yes. Okay. Now we're talking. And I'm wondering how much I'm going to lean into that painterly. You know, it's kind of tight with just the beginning of the wolf filled out, right? And it's kind of cool. You look at some darker colors on the wings. Let's just go for it. Let's kind of see what happens. I'm just going to plow like 100 miles an hour ahead and see what happens here. Oh, got a lot of stuff in the chat. But even if it's a mystery, there's still a place for us setting everything in order. There's a difference between theology as God knows himself and our theology of God. Yeah, that's true, actually. That's true. Also, one thing I thought was really interesting is that, I don't know if this is true because it's hard for me to get like an in total picture of another, theological situation. But one thing I was reading said that in some systems, they have like a distinction. I'm thinking mostly of Mormonism, but other groups have this too. They have a distinction between private and public revelation, which I thought was really interesting. I thought that was an interesting idea that like you yourself could sort of, figure things out and get a little bit further along on the path, but it didn't necessarily mean that you were fit to like pass that information on to other people. I don't know if that's exactly what it is, but I just heard someone mention it. But either way, whether that's the case or not, I thought this distinction between like private and public revelation was really, really interesting. So I can blur this out a little bit. I think what I'm going to do is come in with like details on the wings maybe. I'm not sure. This area, I didn't really anticipate this like needing attention or needing something to happen, but it definitely does. So I'm just going to go for it down there and see what happens. We can add like a shine, but there's going to need to be some kind of like image or something in here. Pretty good. Okay. It's in the right direction, but not exactly what we 100% need. Yo, I was wondering what type of church you got married under, considering you don't have a denomination yet. Yeah, nobody get mad at me, but I actually didn't get married in a church, unfortunately. It's actually kind of an interesting story, I guess, since more than one person asked about it. So like in case some people just started, following me or on Twitter or whatever, but so yes, I became Christian, don't belong to any one group. The people who have followed me are like, all right, I'm kind of sick of hearing about this. But so I didn't belong to any church or anything, and I wasn't sure what to do. So I actually prayed about it, and I was like, all right, very unofficially, I was like, all right, God, I need to marry my wife, so I'm just going to do it. And then it's legit, I know it's legit, and I'm going to make it actually legit, like in a church as soon as possible. So that's just what we did. We just got married at someone's house, honestly. And I do want to make it like church official, but basically I just weighed my options and I was like, this is just the best move right now. What else am I going to do? Like wait? I don't know. I guess I could have waited, but I thought that was worse. So I didn't. Orthodox see God as essence and energies, which I think reflects his image clearer in us as we have a faith, energy, and works, energies, operations. That's one reason why I became Eastern Orthodox. Yeah, it's interesting, man. The essence energy distinction is actually really cool. In case people don't know about that, you should definitely check it out. I have gotten a lot of mileage out of that, to be honest with you. I feel like it really clarified a lot of things for me. I haven't like formally looked into it, aside from reading a little bit about it and hearing people talk about it, but it is super interesting. Okay, let's start making some powerful moves here. It's funny, I thought this would be like quick layers, drying, stacking. I thought it would be like 10 layers deep, but it's not actually what happened. It's okay though. Things never go 100% according to plan. Let's see. How do I want to keep playing this out? What I'm thinking is I'm going to throw down a horizon between this guy's horns right now. I'm breaking out the magenta. And let's just see what happens here. I'm going to break out this darker color. And I'm feeling like, perfect, in here. Okay. Pretty good. And I'm going to throw down, I guess since I haven't used acrylic paints in a long time, I didn't anticipate how many of them are so translucent. But whatever. Let's throw in a cedar tree in here. There is symbolism for the cedar tree. They usually planted it around cemeteries because they said once you cut it, it doesn't grow back anymore. So it came to represent like death. But then sometimes I use it in a Christian context, sort of in the opposite way. It's like the illusion of death, I guess you could say. You see it in Renaissance art a lot. Nice. And we'll take some of the green from above. We'll throw it inside this tree. And then I guess we got to get the writing is also partially what I'm hoping will cement this. Let's see how fast and powerful we can go in the next 15 minutes or so. Yeah, it wasn't green enough, but it's okay. Up on the top is probably going to be ready to get it going. Let's take some of this brown. We'll just lighten up the red oxide a little bit. We'll grab a little bit of the white and yellow over here. I'm going to throw down that scroll we talked about. I think that's going to look really sick. And then I think the Gothic writing is also going to seal this up. This is probably going to be one of those paintings where we get to the end and then there's like, there's no focal area. There's no one area of highest contrast, but let's just see. How do I want to do the scroll? Let's do it, I guess facing this way is better. We'll get this right here. Boom, coming back around. Man, like, see the line quality I'm getting? That's just like the issue, isn't it? It's just the issue, but I don't know what to do about it. Maybe it's just the paints. Maybe we should have stayed with the gouache, but gotta try some new things out. See, it's like that right there. You see that? It's the making the line with the brush, and then you get that, I don't even know what to call it, like a bumpage on the black. I mean, on the back. It's really the issue. It's okay though. Boom. So we got this up here. Ugh. Not the move. Let's see if we can pick that up. Oh, perfect. Perfect. Okay, let's see. It's been a while since we had a painting not come out, frankly, really, really great. So let's see. Can we pull it together? Can we pull it together and make this happen? The scroll looks pretty good, actually. I could have made that angle a little bit differently, but it looks pretty good. I'm going to grab the big brush again. And let's see what happens if I come back over this. Can you feel the crunch time? It's fourth quarter. We got the clock ticking. Okay, I'm just going to grab some of this. Let's come over here with the brown coming in. Also, once I throw the border down, I'm thinking it'll look totally differently. It's been so many years since I used acrylic paint. It's like you can feel the inorganic nature of the material. It's so... I can like feel it. It's so different than the gouache. I guess I kind of forgot. Although it looks kind of cool. I can get down with these like strokes and everything on the outside. I don't know. I'm really torn. I'm really torn about the results that we're getting here. I'm really torn about it, to be honest with you. Maybe I should just get a little more bold. Like, yeah, I'll get this little painterly texture coming around. I almost want to introduce a new color. I'm all over the place right now, man. Let's see what's going to happen. I'm going to grab... Should we introduce the blue? It's going to be such a big call. This is really make or break. This is really make or break live on the show. I really can't tell if we should use the blue, man. Am I being a wimp? Am I wussing out? Or am I making an intelligent call? It's so hard to tell. It's so hard to tell, but I have to be bold. I think what we should do is push the magenta a little bit more. I think that this is the real answer. This is the real answer right here. And I'm just going to come up. Let's just get it going. Boom, 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 boom. That wasn't the boldness we need, though. Come in here. I think we need a little bit of this right here. Okay. Okay. And I honestly want a little bit. Boom. Okay. Now we're talking. See, this kind of like powerful stroke like that is sort of what I've been wanting this whole time. Boom. Perfect. And then maybe I can come in a little bit like this, get it under the wings. Yes, perfect. Come up in here. It's It's kind of exciting right now because I actually don't know where this is going to go entirely. Although, I think that one thing that we're obviously going to do is that the wolf is itself like very pagan, and that kind of negates like the whole point of the picture. So what I'm going to do is put, obviously, we got to put a cross in, obviously. So let's throw it up on the wolf, like the wolf is bringing it, right? That's kind of what happened, actually. And we got to get the Gothic writing in also. Perfect. If anyone wasn't here in the beginning, they're going to tune in and be like, what? It's a wolf with like a Mercury helmet? I kind of intentionally made the proportions a little bit different because I put the bar a little bit lower down than I normally would. Just thought I should. And now the wolf is a little bit too low contrast, even though he is the actual focus of the picture. So I'm going to come back in and do some of these lines up a little bit more. Perfect. You can kind of see now the texture that I thought we'd be going for the whole time emerging a little bit. Where you get these like layers of paint built up. I guess I really do have to come back in though. Boom, boom. Like even on the wolf right now, the red with the magenta outline. Let's see. No. Okay, that's enough about early Christianity doctrinal stuff. I think if I have anything else to say about that, but not really. Boom, perfect. Coming back around here. Yeah, what I'm going to do is I really like the look of the red lines on the wolf with the magenta. So I'm going to come outline the back. And I think I'm going to leave the other stuff. Yeah, perfect. And you know what else it needs? It needs this line right here. Boom, perfect. Yeah, there we go. Perfect. I'm going to have to put the eye on the wolf, but I'll do that last. Is this dry yet? No, it's not. Writing. So now we have a few things going on. It's getting better. I'm really going like 100 miles an hour right now. We got to adjust up here because now it's too high contrast. Yeah, perfect. So I'm just going to come in. Boom. And getting the green sort of shining through the magenta is a little bit of a dangerous game, but I think that's just what we're going to go for right now. Can't tell if I love or hate this kind of texture I'm getting over here, but we're just going to roll with it. I'm going to grab this. Boom, perfect. Let's come over here. Perfect. I guess the magenta really fits because it is like that, the codex color that we started with at the beginning. Okay, I gotta like simplify this just a little bit. Boom. Perfect. And then I don't want it to just be that high contrast up there. Okay. I changed how I sit in my seat. Okay, perfect. Okay, this is really interesting because I feel like we're right on the edge of it working. Don't you feel it? You can feel it, right? I feel like we're right on the edge. It's like right there. It's like, oh, it's almost working. But it's not. But it almost is. It almost is. I think that what we need is some more light in the front. Everything got a little dark. This is kind of exciting. Can you feel the excitement? I hope you can. Because I don't know how it's going to turn out. It could be a total failure. I feel like we're not in total failure territory right now. But the thing is, completing a piece of art requires making some bold decisions. So at any point we could careen totally off the cliff. At any moment I could make a decision and it could have been the wrong decision. And then that's it. We're done. Oh, that was such a good stroke. Perfect. That is exactly what we need. You see how clear that got over there versus over here? That's literally exactly what we need. I'm going to come in. Boom. Perfect. Okay. Okay, it's happening. Let's see. Coming over here. Oh, perfect. Literally perfect. Boom. Perfect. Okay. I'm going to bring the white in. Made a little bit of a risky wide brush stroke there. I'm going to do the same thing over here. I feel like I'm really playing with the messiness to well-calibrated ratio here. Okay. Let's come in, where's the cadmium yellow? Perfect. No one's in the chat. No one's saying anything in the chat. Everyone's on the edge of their seat. This is it. They turned off the sports games. They turned down the radio. They've gathered their loved ones around and they said, oh my God, is Owen gonna stick the landing? We literally have no idea. Everyone is waiting with bated breath. So I'm breaking out this color. I kind of want the color for the cross to land in this range that we have going on. You can also see, you know, if you watch the show a bunch, it's almost easier, not easier, but it's a different ball game when you're working in that kind of medieval color scheme world where all the colors are very pure. And then when you stack them all together, you know they're going to look good. You can take the lapis lazuli blue, the pure red, the pure orange, the pure yellow, a few browns, and you know every time that they're going to look good. You can be very confident about it. But once you start getting a little bit more out there, then you don't know. I'm going to change up the feeling a little bit right now because I feel like what we need is just more of like the clear lines, and wherever I can get clear lines, I'm going to take that opportunity. Wherever I can put a line down and say, yeah, that'll add some visual clarity, I'm just going to do it. Boom, boom. So I went for these very illustrative lines. Thought that was a good call. I'm also going to try and grab some white, perfect up here, and see if I can get kind of a clear halo around the wolf. The guy we're painting, Ufilas, he's not a saint, but you know, no one's gonna see this picture and think that this is like a serious theological thing. So I'm just gonna go for it. Also, because it'll look cool. Let's see, can I get the clarity? I gotta lay down. Oh, perfect. Perfect. It's not too bright. The yellow on yellow looks pretty good though. Okay, what else can we start? Keep stacking the clarity. We're gonna have to deal with like this whole, let me move this a little bit, perfect. This whole situation over here, it looks a little bit messy, but we have a good setup. Tree in the middle, that could change up. Let's grab it right here. Oh, nice, I got a super chat. Thanks, man. I appreciate that greatly, especially now. And it says, what's your take on Christian mystery schools? Are they just outright heresy and literal magic, or is there some interesting and ancient symbols modern Christians aren't using these days? Well, yeah, as Isidore immediately asked you, can you clarify what you mean by Christian mystery schools specifically? Because you asking that makes me think of, it's kind of a few directions that could go in. I mean, there's some like occult groups who like claim to be Christian. I guess I'm thinking of, you know, groups who call themselves Rosicrucian. That's pretty common. Even some of the, you know, Golden Dawn, like straight up occulty groups call themselves, I don't think they would call themselves Christian, but they use and do like Christian stuff and things like that. What else does Christian mystery school make me think of? While you're answering that, there is a book that I really like called Christianity as Mystical Fact by Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner is about, I don't know if I mentioned it on here, maybe I mentioned it a little bit, But Rudolf Steiner's about as out there as I'll go, and still be like, this person's Christian. Probably just because I like him, honestly, but he's about as out there as I'll go, and still say, like, this person's not just nominally Christian, but they actually are. And he has this book called Christianity as Mystical Fact, and it's pretty awesome. It's basically all about how, like, Christianity is the continuation of, like, the mystery school tradition, not in, like, a direct way, but in, like, the way that, like, what all these different mystery schools were trying to teach and get at, that's what Christianity, like, successfully did and brought to the world. And he kind of sets up, actually I'm realizing I have talked about this before on here because I'm remembering, but he basically sets up this, like, theory of history in the book where, like, before Christianity, seeking spiritual knowledge naturally took place in these, like, frankly, like, shadowy, kind of, like, weird organizations. And that now that, you know, the incarnation happened and everything, that's not how seeking of spiritual knowledge is supposed to be done anymore, that now it's meant to be done the way Christianity has it set up to do it, you know, out in the open and, like, as part of, like, a larger community and everything. I thought that book was really cool. I don't know if I totally agree, like, 100% with the setup and premise and everything, but I think there is something to that idea that if you look back before Christianity, obviously the main way of gaining spiritual knowledge was hierarchical, often secretive organizations like priesthoods and stuff like that. And then after Christianity, I don't think it's a coincidence that that started to, like, slowly die away and everything. But yeah, as for the question of, like, Christian mystery schools, mostly that would make me think of, like, Rosicrucianism. And that's, like, a whole weird nut to unpack because a lot of the Rosicrucian groups, a lot of Rosicrucian stuff, in case people don't know what I'm talking about, you can Google it. It's like ROSI, Rosicrucian. I mean, a lot of it is like a meme in the sense that it's like an idea that different people picked up on at different points in time. I'm going to keep answering, but I'm realizing, we talked about this last week, but I'm holding on to these areas on the side. I'm, like, gripping them with an iron fist. Really don't want them to go away. But I'm kind of realizing that's what's holding the picture back. So I'm just going to paint over them. You got to be willing to let parts go. We talked about that last week. Anyway, though, yeah. So, I mean, to answer your question, I kind of feel like the general setup of, like, a mystery school is in and of itself antithetical to Christianity. I did think about it for a while, honestly, and when I was transitioning out of occult stuff to Christianity, there was this part of me that, like, really wanted to make it work. There was this part of me that really was clinging so hard to, like, oh, well, you know, maybe there is this, like, secret underlying tradition that XYZ, you know, like, I can make it work, like, you know, maybe there is this, you know, fusion of, frankly, like, the occult and Christianity, and, like, you know, that could be a thing, you know. And I went really hard on trying to make that work. I read a lot of really weird books by really weird people, and ultimately I was just like, dude, it's not working. I have to just let this go. I remember this time I was in my room. This isn't exactly what you asked me, but it's relevant. I was in my room, and let's see, we made a lot of progress here. Something's going to happen to make the background more interesting, but I'm also going to wrap this up maybe in like 10 minutes. I'm not going to force it to get wrapped up, but it's going to happen. So I was literally in my room, and I had read this book. It's a really weird book. It's actually, no offense to the guy. I don't think I've actually never mentioned it on here, so no offense to the guy. I'm sure he's a cool guy or whatever, but it's a really poorly... It's a weird book. It's a weird book. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to be mean. Just put it that way. It's a weird book. I do not recommend it. But there's this guy who wrote these books that are all about, like, fusing Christianity and the occult. I think one of them's called, like, The Magic of Catholicism. And I think one of them's called, like, Ceremonial Magic for Christians or something. And I saw it, and it was right at the time where I was really trying to make that work. Like I said, I never did, like, ceremonial magic stuff. I always had kind of like a wall up there spiritually where I just felt like it was kind of weird, to be honest with you. But I really wanted to make it work, so I read those books, and that kind of is when I was like, dude, I'm really just trying to fit like a square peg into a circle hole right now, and I just gotta let the dream die. I just gotta let it die. I did a lot of self-reflection. I was like, why am I trying so hard to make this work right now? And it really was an interesting sort of spiritual moment for me, because I also realized that I think there is intrinsically something that is antithetical to the weird, like, secret-y spiritual organization thing in Christianity. And I think it's intrinsic. I don't think it's cultural or imparted or taught or anything like that. I mean, I suppose it is, but I feel like there's just an intrinsic wall there, and that it actually is there, and that you and I, presumably you're asking because you thought about it. I don't think it's imagined. I think it actually is real. I think there is something antithetical to the setup of like a secret society religious group and Christianity. I don't think they go together. That was a big wall for me. You know, the only like really secret society stuff I almost got involved in, it's not a secret society. People wouldn't think of it that way. But like the esoteric Buddhism stuff, like Tantric Buddhism, Tibetan Buddhism, we actually started the show talking about that, oddly enough. That is basically having the setup of a secret society. I don't think anyone would think of Tibetan Buddhism as a secret society, but it kind of is. I mean, you get like initiated literally. You get a teacher who gives you like the secret information. You know, there's books you can't read. You're not allowed to read certain books until you get to a certain part. So it kind of is like a secret society kind of thing. I'm gonna see if I can pick up any paint on the outside here and get texture going in like a more interesting way. The background has just been so difficult here, hasn't it? That's kind of cool though, actually. Perfect. Let's see, what if I just do this? What if I just try and like tear up the background a little bit and give it that kind of old look right now? Yeah, there we go. Now we're talking. I'm just gonna do that. So yeah, and that was a really big obstacle for me, man, because perfect. This is great. This is exactly what we needed to do the whole time. I'm just going to kind of give this like a weird aged, kind of like almost like blurred look. Yeah, dude. Perfect. I kind of like this because now it's kind of like the like Germanic pagan thing the Christianity he brought replaced. It's almost like that's kind of like worn and torn, you know? So I think what we're going to do is I'm going to let this dry a little bit. I'm going to come over with a little bit of a wash of the, like, look at this. This is tight. Of the older, the kind of like aging brown color, and then we'll probably be about done. I might need to do something here. We're going a little bit over. It's 8:35. I've been saying like we'll wrap it up in 10 minutes over and over and over again, but soon we actually will. What was I saying? And yeah, man, that was really difficult for me because, you know, I don't know. I think it's a lot to for the secret society thing. I mean, what I realized, I also again, I never did anything, so I don't want to be like LARPing and be like, I know all about this thing. But I did look into what's called AA, not the Alcoholics Anonymous organization, which actually at the time I definitely should have checked out. But it's this like magical order, I don't know what else to call it, that is based on like Aleister Crowley and Golden Dawn and all this stuff. And you can literally just find their website and like email them and be like, hey, I want to become a part of this whole thing you guys are doing. And they send you a list of books and you have to read them. You have like a few months or something, and then you go take a test on the books, and then they decide if you can join their weird little situation or whatever. So I'm going to use a paper towel instead of a brush to do what I'm doing right now. I'm just going to try and rub the brown around the outsides to maybe give it like sort of a luminous, like older quality. And then we'll see what we need to do in the center, and then we're probably going to be done. I do like how this one is turning out though. I need to let this dry. I need to just chill for a second. But I don't want to. And I did that. I emailed them and I got the books and everything, but kind of the same thing with the Tibetan stuff. And I mean, I'm not dismissing all of Tibetan Buddhism based on this. I'm just talking about one aspect of my experience with it. But it's kind of a lot to like put all your trust in, you know, some random guy that you don't know, who's going to tell you X, Y, Z and be in charge of your spiritual life and everything. I mean, at least if you become, you know, some manifestation of Christian where you get like a spiritual advisor, at least like you can see that guy, you can see his life, you know about him. He's presumably like part of the community, other people know him and everything, you know, but I think it gets a little dicey when it's like this secret weird thing. Yeah, it's like the only way to say it. I think it gets dicey when it's like this weird thing and you're getting like initiated basically. And I'm kind of like rambling, but I just want to make sure I'm doing this color thing right. I feel like it's a lot to like trust someone. Like I guess what I'm getting at, sorry, I didn't really explain that very well. What I'm getting at is like with any kind of secret society, religious thing, you use the term mystery school. I guess that is like the way to describe it. You don't really know what you're getting into inherently at the outset because you can't, because it's a mystery thing, right? So how can you know how it's going to be at the outset? There's literally no way for you to know. So you have to just trust and take this leap of faith, and at the end of the day, I mean, is that really warranted, right? It's kind of weird if you think about it. Okay. So I know we just made some crazy maneuvers here, but I think that was a really solid little process we just went through. And what I'm going to do is throw down the border right now, and that's going to clear this up a lot. It's going to clear up what we have going on quite a bit. I thought we'd run a little bit over, but you know, it gets to the end and I'm like, well, am I going to rush like 10 minutes, you know, after we came this far? So I'm just going to make sure we tighten this up a little bit. That's basically it though. If you're asking me that question, you should check out that book. There's a really good audio book of it on YouTube. It's called Christianity as Mystical Fact by Rudolf Steiner. And, you know, he believes in some things that I don't think are compatible with the Christian system, but overall, I think the picture he paints in there is really good. I think it also explains why a lot of that stuff feels weird also, to be honest with you, you know. That's another thing with like the ceremonial magic stuff. I always had that stuff around and I was like, I'm just not going to do this. I feel weird. I feel weird like being in my room, like doing like weird like dark rituals. Like what the heck? Like I'm not freaking doing that, man. Even though I really wanted to. It's a whole nother topic though. I lived another life before this one. Cool. The Rosicrucian stuff is also interesting because people come at it from such different angles. I think there is this like Rosicrucian museum in California. If you Google up like certain Egyptian terms, eventually you'll find their museum. And it's like these, you know, it's like the last people holding on to theosophy, if anyone knows what theosophy is. It's like the last people holding on to these early 1900s like spiritual movements and stuff, and they call themselves Rosicrucians and everything. Oh yeah, the other part of your question was interesting. What was the other part of it? Are there some ancient symbols modern Christians aren't using these days? Yeah, I mean, that's like an interesting aspect of like the mystery religion thing, right? They promise like, oh, you're going to find out what X, Y, and Z really means. I think there is always an aspect of going deeper into that stuff, but I don't know. I kind of reject a lot of the, you know, that's always been a thing. Like the Gnostics back in the day were really big on that. Like, oh, we're going to tell everyone like what Jesus was really teaching and like X, Y, and Z. I don't know. It becomes very difficult to like parse out for me personally because like, unless you have like some revelation like to base it on, which, you know, you could say you believe or don't believe. I think it's a little bit difficult because, you know, I mean, there's not really a basis for it like in the Gospels and in Scripture, and then if there's not, then you're kind of just like jumping off into some weird like Gnostic-y thing, I guess. I don't know. I could explain that better if I wasn't painting right now. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah! Dude, this looks pretty good. This looks pretty good. Oh, the paint is so shiny. It's way shinier than the gouache. I gotta get the light over here. Perfect. Interesting. Interesting. I am feeling how this has turned out. I was gonna say it is turning out, but we're there. It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool. I don't really know what to think about what just happened here. Actually, I think it looks pretty solid. You know, it's funny. This looks like the shine, but it's not. It's just the white paint. You know, I kind of like how we just landed on that. I think I might add a few more details, and then we'll call this done. I don't know. It's interesting too, man. Like, you know, what's the deal with like the draw? What's the deal with the draw to that secret knowledge? You know what I mean? It's an interesting. It's like a lust, isn't it? You know, it's like a lust for some kind of like secret wisdom. I don't know. Where I'm at now, I think I've kind of channeled that over to like trying to understand God more. I guess you could say it's a similar thing, but I don't know. I'm gonna think about that. Okay. Yeah, someone in the chat said, I feel like it needs one more thing. I don't know what though. Yeah, I kind of agree. I'm gonna take the yellow out of here on the bottom just to clear it up a little bit. You know, we were gonna put in some writing. We were gonna put in some of the Gothic writing. I'm kind of nervous to do that now at the end, but it might be really sick. It might be really tight to do that. Let's see. Let's pull it up. Let me pull up the writing. This is a long episode. I hope it's cool with you. But if it's not cool with you, I mean, you would just like turn it off, right? So I guess, you know, what are you gonna do? I don't know, man. I really like the idea of putting a little bit of the writing in, but did we box ourselves in too much? I mean, you know, you know what I could do? It'd be a pretty powerful move, honestly. We could come in with some writing that goes off the border and then just kind of fills it out like a pattern. You know, now that I imagine that, I think that's what we're gonna do. This is a big move, though. This could be a good or a bad call. But we won't know until we do it. I'm gonna grab the last bit of white paint. The last bit of white paint. Okay. And let's see. I think I'm gonna do this. I think we're gonna grab the red, and we'll make it this kind of pale red. I think that's just what's gonna happen, but not too pale. Not too pale. A little darker. You know, also, I guess the other thing I'll say, just because of where I'm at, like study-wise right now, is I don't know if you're American. Who asked me that? Nathan. I don't know if you want me to say your last name. Nathan asked me that. But I feel like also there's part of the American feeling with Christianity. I can't say if it's accurate or not, but I can say just purely studying ethnography-wise, and I feel it just because I'm American. I think that every nation kind of takes their own like angle on Christianity, you could say, in a way. Not that they have like their own manifestation of it, but I use the word angle like very specifically. But I think for Americans, there is a feeling of like something's missing in Christianity, and I see that manifested in all these different groups that I look at. There's always this feeling of like, but where did we take a wrong turn? Where somewhere we dropped something, somewhere we missed something, somewhere along the way. There's something intrinsic to the American Christian experience that's like telling you in the back of your mind, somewhere we missed something. Somewhere we left something or didn't pick it up, and we have to find it, or something's missing, basically. And it's really interesting. You see it in like all different American Christian groups. It's interesting. I can't really totally explain it. But that is a common element in like all of them, in my opinion. Not all of them, like every single one, but it's a really common like subtextual sentiment that you find over and over. So I'm just going to go for it, and I'm going to kind of just lay down like broken Gothic writing, and we're just going to see what happens. I might make it darker as we go down towards the bottom. I might not. But I kind of like the idea of it just being like a broken pattern over this. And let's see, we came this far, so. And I'm going to use a little bit. So I want to make sure it seems like it's infinite kind of behind the page. So that's why I started off the page right there, just for the record. Cool. I'm not too worried about getting the letters right. I mean, I will, but I also just want to make sure that it has the flavor of the writing. I mean, I'm looking at it, so I'm not going to like 100% make it up, but I just want to make sure that it has the feeling of the writing that I'm looking at. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it kind of like fade in and out. I think that that's really the move. Almost like it's that worn manuscript we saw in the beginning of the show. Yeah, that looks dope. That looks really dope. We'll have it coming out here. Perfect. Coming behind here. Great. Great. We'll have some come in front of the scroll, but I want to do that strategically. I might even do that right here. Perfect. They have their F's going down. It is kind of runic. It has a little bit of a runic flavor. And I backed up a little bit there. See, this is using the materials to our advantage. It's a really interesting, if you came this far, thank you by the way for watching for so long. Thank you. We went a little over, but this is such, see, I wanted to do the show because I have these moments and notice this, but I can't share them with anyone. So I thought that's why it'd be cool to do the painting show. So you can see here, we're finally using the transparency of the paint to our advantage. This whole time, the transparency of the paint has been an obstacle. And I've been like, ugh, well, it's so transparent. We're just waiting for it to dry. How can it be thicker? Should I add the white? But you can see here with the writing, now the fact that it fades in and out is an advantage to us, and it looks sick. So that's a really big part of just doing art in general, honestly, is wrestling with the materials. And sometimes their unique nature is an advantage, and sometimes their unique nature is a disadvantage. And as you level up as an artist, what you get better at is using the unique aspect of the materials. And that's just a perfect example of that. It's almost impossible to demonstrate unless someone sits with you at your desk for like an hour. I'm even going to pick up a little bit of that. Yeah, perfect. And over here too, do the same thing. Perfect. And so even right now, perfect. I just wanted it to be a little bit fadey in the back. But I don't want it to be too uniform. It's already getting a little bit too uniform. I really want it to be like a broken, oh, perfect. That was literally perfect. Like a broken pattern in the back. Almost like it feels like you can almost read it. And let's see, what's another, there we go, perfect. Let's see, got the eye, perfect. I'm gonna get some of it coming over the wings, and I feel like it's gonna be fat over here. I'm just gonna get it going. Perfect, yeah, there we go. Perfect. Man, this looks sick. Oh, perfect. Okay. Come down here. And let's see, can I get it faded over the, yeah, perfect. 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 Okay. We almost got the writing how we want it to be. Little line up there. That's way too much though. Perfect. Still too much. Perfect. Yeah, that was really good. Okay. And the last thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna paint some white around the head of the wolf. That's the last thing. That's the last thing we're gonna do. Man, that was really solid. That was really a big game changer. Wow. That was really tight. Really glad we just did that together. Okay, throw a little white around the head. Someone said it looks dope in the chat, thank you. Just dropped a big white glob of paint. That's fine though. I'm gonna work with it. Perfect. Perfect. Great. Just adds to the patina. Patina, it's a word we use. It means like the particular finish that the painting has. Oh yeah, yeah. Actually, I did not see that. Santi G said had his appendix removed today. Word. Came home just to watch the show. Just me. That's awesome, man. I'm glad. I hope that's going okay for you. I did some medical stuff sometime last year. I'm always doing medical stuff, but I did some more like surgery kind of stuff. It wasn't really surgery, but it doesn't really matter. I hope you're doing okay though. Never had any organs taken out. Perfect. Come out this way. Boom. Perfect. But no, I wasn't trolling you. I didn't see that. Perfect. Nice. Okay. I think we might be about done here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a little bit of the white. I just feel like it's a little bit too strong. Yeah, perfect. Now I feel like it's not strong enough though. I'm just going to come back a little bit. Yeah, there we go. That's perfect. Almost this like drippy kind of like halo. Perfect. So we'll finish the outline on the head and then we're going to call it. Then we're going to call it. Okay, I just need a little bit of magenta back. Wow, that was really cool. That was really intense. It's always interesting because sometimes you get sucked into it. I don't know if it happens when you're watching. I kind of hope it happens when you're watching, but when you're doing it, like what we've been here for like 2 hours, it literally felt like 10 minutes, honestly. It always happens when you get sucked into it. How you feeling? You got your appendix out. We're at the end of the show. We can just be casual now. How you feeling? How'd it go? I had this surgery thing last year, and the worst part of it was after. I had this whole crazy, weird procedure done. I was fine. I'm not trying to get any sympathy or anything. I was like totally fine. But the worst part was that night. So they kept me overnight in the hospital. I've never done that before. It's a really weird, interesting vibe. And I got this like insane heartburn because of this procedure I went through where they like cleared out like certain, things in my liver. It's not really important. But I got this crazy heartburn and I was like, oh, okay, like this isn't that big a deal. I'll just, get like a Tums or something, And the nurse that was there overnight like couldn't get cleared to give me anything for the heartburn. And I literally just laid in bed with friends playing on this hospital TV from like midnight to 4 a.m. just like literally watching the clock in like horrible, intense pain. And it was so funny because I was like, wow, this is worse than the actual problem I had. The actual problem I had wasn't this bad. Okay. I think we're good. This looks pretty sick. I think we're good. I'm just looking at it for a second. Let's see. Let's get this gray background out of here. Just gotta make sure I'm not gonna get paint on anything. Yeah, man. That was a really interesting episode. Talking about my own show. Wow, that was really great. No, that was really interesting though, for real. Nice. Cool. All right, that was a really interesting first acrylic episode. I think this one looks sick though. So you can see that it's a lot different than the watercolory gouache stuff. Man, it's really interesting. I just keep saying that, but it really was. So it's a lot different than the watercolory gouache stuff. I feel like we could push this. I guess I just have to see how to get it to build up faster. You can see, like, we almost spent first like 45 plus minutes just laying down the background, kind of like over and over and over. But then once we like touched down on the ground and got it running, I mean, it's really tight. the texture, I guess more like rubbing and like paper towels and stuff and building it up. Eventually what I used to do, I even used to take sandpaper and just sand it down at the end sometimes. Sometimes you can add like a glaze or something at the end. Otherwise, I think this looks kind of tight. It's also a good mix when you get it going, once you finally hit the ground running, of drawing and painting. So we got like the lines and everything, but it's still like painterly. So I'm really happy with this. It's also cool when you get this object at the end, because this isn't like a piece of paper. You could like, you know, I could just put this up on a shelf or something, you know. It's kind of cool to get an object at the end rather than a piece of paper. But I'm gonna call that successful. I really like it a lot. It has a very weird feeling to it, but I really like that a lot. Let's see, anything else in the chat? Doing better than I thought I would. Didn't think I'd be out so soon. Ironically, in more pain now than before. Okay, yeah, so that's exactly what I just said. All right, cool. So it's the same exact thing that happened to me. Yeah, what are you gonna do? I hope you feel better though. Okay, I think we're good, man. I think we're good. I don't know. We took way too long on this one. I don't like to do full 2 hours, not because of my time, just because I feel like people, you know, don't need to watch like an entire movie. I feel like an hour, hour and a half is solid. So I don't know. Maybe we'll hit the acrylics again next week. I can't really tell. I guess we did spend like 30 minutes in the beginning going over this stuff though. But yeah, let's see how it goes. All right, cool. I'm excited. I think once we get upstairs, once I move into the real studio upstairs, it's going to be season 4 of the painting show. We're wrapping up season 3 right now. But yeah, we'll just wrap it up, man. I hope that was cool for you guys. Thank you for coming through, watching a unique edition of the painting show with me. It's my pleasure, really. And now, you know the story. Now we go back to the battlefield, back to the internet, where we all hang out together, or real life, where we do all different kinds of things. So thanks for coming through, and I'll see you guys next week.